Hello, welcome to episode 52 of the Inforunners. Today we're going to be talking about ground combat, the Nova Tank, and the new Squadron 42 reveal.
First message in chat is about time. Yeah, yes. It's all good. We got to get things working, and we've been trying to up our professional levels. But yeah, welcome everyone. Merry Christmas from down under. Yeah, wow. What about today? That was...
I was impressed. I got what I wanted. My expectations were met.
Yep, I think it was pretty well done. Everything we expected without doing a rehash of the Morrow Tour.
Can you... I got a question that's been kind of bugging me here for you guys. When it kind of ended and it came up with Chris Roberts, he didn't look... I could tell he was kind of nervous because he knew there was bugs in it. I don't think it was to his personal standard. What do you guys?
Never to his personal standard. One little glitch and he gets like sort of edgy. You know,
that's right.
This is Chris Roberts we're talking about.
You know, and you got to remember they did have technical glitches yesterday that actually made them delay it by 24 hours. So I could imagine him being, I could imagine him being nervous and hope it doesn't fall over or.
Yeah, it's his baby too. It really is.
That's right.
Yeah, if you put it next to the whole Star Citizen experience, that's the thing he wants most to succeed. It's, he likes his movie stuff. If
100% Chris Roberts, they wouldn't have delayed 24 hours. So obviously, someone with a bit of smarts decided to say no. We will play it safe.
I do think it was clever to have it pre-recorded as well. I think, but the only thing I didn't like is I wish they'd edited parts of it. Like some of those really long flight scenes were a bit of a letdown. And I will be brutally honest. That's probably the weak point of the game at the moment. Trying to get to certain places can take a little length of time, but hopefully that's all smoothed over in the course of development.
But it was also good because it's actually showing the actual gameplay. Like they could have said, okay, we're just going to cut it here and do this. But what they were showing is, okay, this is what a standard mission will look like. This is how long it'll take you. This is, and so, yeah, it may have felt a bit long, but if it was any shorter, you'd have been saying, oh, well, I've travelled that distance really quickly. And so you do want that kind of balance in there. And I think it's about right.
That's a good point. Two sidelines. We'll talk more about the Squadron 42 reveal towards the end. The topic I really, really want us to cover and tackle first up is the idea with the Nova Tank, the sheer scale of this sort of vehicle. It sort of shows that they are seriously contemplating bridging atmospheric flight and ground combat as a seamless sort of experience, as opposed to, we've talked before about having two separate modes where ground vehicles might stand a chance because you have areas that are no-fly, or and you have to go down and ground separately. But the Nova Tank is the first departure away from that idea, and sort of securing the future in the idea that ground vehicles will be seriously able to cope and compete and work against atmospheric, as well as work together with. And as opposed to all the ground vehicles to date have been more traversal-based vehicles, this is the first serious vehicle which will interact with spacecraft.
What was the word they used? Complementary? Was the word
they said complementary. I personally, I see that as them saying seamless. They work as one.
Well, as I was hinting at earlier, that what they're doing is they're just making War Thunder in space. Yeah. That's what it's basically becoming. In War Thunder, you can be a tanker driving your tank around, and you can have someone in a plane doing their bombing mission and deciding, hey, there's a tank there, and dive bombing you, and you can set a plane and you can start shooting at it. And it's not just you versus AI; it's you versus players at that point, and that is a really good comp.
I think it's War Thunder and more, though, man. I see that almost taking on Battlefield and Call of Duty, and it's
armor.
It's armor, and it's literally cross genre. I don't know. I was going to say genres or generatic, but it's interesting because when you look at some of those other games, if they get that gameplay right, they can literally steal a huge chunk of the pie from other games, and I don't think people realize how much weight social can play in games. Like, there are a lot of people that play Warcraft, and the only reason they play it is to talk to other people. So if you can pull in all these people that want to play those games, plus there's the people like the space part and all this, and you'll get these huge social hubs.
It's Battlefront. You've got your infantry. You'll have your infantry. You'll have your tanks, so your mechs, your walkers. You'll have your Titan armors. You'll have your ships flying in.
I was just going to say the gameplay part of it that I want to see is the reasoning for wanting to have constant tank battles. Are there going to be these conflict zones that you're trying to, like, how do I give an example? So say there's a rare resource that can be mined relatively quickly, that you fight for that area so you can mine it. And then all of a sudden you get this really interesting dynamic gameplay, because it's not just combat. You've got to get a vehicle that goes in there to mine, or, you know, an area where a javelin's gone down, you've got to retrieve something. So instantly you're not just having combat people, but you're having engineers and cargo haulers and all that come into this mix, and you get this really, as you said, dynamic working together gameplay that goes across the bridge. And it's not...
Well,
you were previously talking about just combat. I'm talking about multiple different gameplay disciplines.
But anyway, but they're already talking that as well.
The reason why they've made this big tank now is because all the little ground vehicles, the closest you had was a Tumbril Cyclone AA, which was token. It was never going to be able to keep aircraft at bay. It was never going to be effective against aircraft. This is the first vehicle that can seriously interact with those large spaceships in some degree. And they even talked about being able to remove the main turret and put other functional weapons. And they specifically mentioned an AA. As a platform. You know how, like, World War II tanks, you could take off the turret and put in a crane.
That's the old Bergpanzer of the German army. You know, they'd take off the turret, put on the tank, and often you needed something like that to pull back the damaged vehicles.
So this was less about the Nova interacting with current ground vehicles we have at the moment. These are not true military interact with spaceships at all. They are traversal vehicles. This is shown that this is the first of hopefully many vehicles which will make up the armada that will interact with spaceships. And this is the starting ground.
Do you remember in I'm thinking, when I think of an anti-air tank, I think of there used to be this one in MechWarrior, and I didn't play a lot of MechWarrior, but basically it had on the shoulders of the mech, it basically had these two big squares, so to speak, that were just racks of missiles. Can you imagine taking that and kind of putting it on the head of the tank, so it's kind of like these two different huge pods? That's the type of thing that I envision. But if they actually go to this level of detail to have different modular tanks, once they get to AA and a normal tank, I can't really think of anything other than AA and a normal tank. This might be my military. Like, not knowing much about military stuff, but what else could you guys see being on that?
Okay, that tank, as it currently stands, is not an urban warfare vehicle. That bloody long turret, there's no way that turret can be moved in confined spaces. You take that tank into an urban area, I'm saying cocktail party, bring it on.
Well, you know, it's sort of like you could put a hammerhead style with like 4 anti-infantry and no heavy artillery base piece. And, that would be scary.
You would have a short, maybe a short barrel artillery gun, so it's firing massive artillery shells on land targets. You can have, really,
they mentioned
just using your
and smoke grenades.
Just real quick, they did mention that. I thought that was a really missed opportunity in the Q&A. I really wish it had a siege mode. So maybe there's another variant where they put a different head on, and then it has.
But they said that. Cool they said the turrets will do that. You know, they basically said the turret. You take the turret off and change it, and so you asked what turrets you could have. Well,
I'm really
partial. Siege turret, so short barrel artillery gun, AA turret. You've got your repair turret.
I'm really partial to the siege tank from StarCraft, though. That's what was in my head when they said that. I thought, oh, that seems really awesome. You know, the legs go out and on the ground, and then this huge.
You need to check out some of your World War II German siege tanks. So you've got the Tiger tank had a siege variant with a massive mortar cannon added to it. Right. Most of the long barrel guns, though, they weren't for going into urban areas. You know, the Stug was the first one to develop for the urban areas, and that was a short barrel 76. or 75.
Could you simply, how do I put this? Could you possibly see a variant that, say, and I'm giving a wild example here, so don't quote me on anything. Instead of having one singular size 4 guns, it changes to maybe possibly 2 size 2 or something like that, so it can fire more rapidly, and it's more like a flak.
Okay, that would be like a Whirlwind from World War II. Like an aircraft gun.
Yeah, like a version that's got a quad turret on it. That's basically like a flak one or something.
Yeah, but that's basically a flak gun, your flak tank. So you put you mount your flak turret on top of your tank, and there you go. You put your siege turret on top of a tank, there you go. And they said the base of a tank is standard. It's just a turret that changes. So think of a turret. And World War II tanks were the same. You change the turret if you need it. You put your crane on for your recovery vehicle. You put you change your turret and gun for a siege tank. You did the same for your anti-aircraft gun. You did the same for your, you fused the mount and made a massive gun to make it an anti-tank gun and upgunned it. And all of those are possibilities for this thing. So yeah.
Well, all I can say is it's going to completely change the idea of what we think ground combat's going to be. I know that a couple of friends of mine, Dyson in particular, he wanted a small tank he could fit in a constellation. And, I thought that was cute myself. I thought, why do you want a small tank to fit in a constellation? What are you going to use it for? He said, oh, well, you can go off and explore. And I'm like, well, physically, the game doesn't need that right now.
In a sense,
like he wants to kill Mars.
That goes in the constellation. It's called the Ursa.
Yeah. Well, the Ursa is your APC. It's your armored personnel carrier. And then a Cutlass comes along and absolutely slaughters the Ursa. It's sort of like, you need something when the Cutlass comes along and goes, oh shit, it's a Nova tank. I need to get out of range of that thing. It's going to shoot me out of the sky.
Yes, but that's why you've got the Nova tank.
Yes.
The other thing that it points towards as well, that, and if you read cryptically in what it says in the Q&A, is because only the Idris can hold this at the moment. They even state this is the only ship that isn't been announced.
I bet you they didn't think of the Crucible. It'll fit in a Crucible garage bay.
Yeah, but
Crucible
I think the important thing it says is that there's more ships coming that can hold it, which is important.
Carrick, maybe.
Yeah, that probably can. I think, I can't remember the exact wording, but
I think it's not actually that big. That it may even fit in a Starliner Genesis in the ramp up the back. It may be possible, especially if they make. It's going to grow. That would be.
The Genesis has to grow. Come on, the Genesis has to grow. Just on the size of what it's supposed to be able to do, there's no way it's going to be slightly bigger than a Constellation.
But using Crucible as a tow truck, being able to move the tanks around, that just one more job for its sleeve. I think that's pretty appropriate.
I didn't think of this until just now, but what about the Banu?
Banu, definitely.
Yeah, well, if it's loading ramp that comes in, or however it works, I mean, you could ratchet it up on leads and put it up into the hold or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, didn't the Banu, at least on some of the earlier art, have a ramp for loading?
Yes.
And
it did.
We already know that Banu's grown just because of simple geometry between humans and Banu.
It has the cargo space to be able to fit a tank, and it's all central located,
And it's got to grow in terms of size because Banu are so much taller than us. So that means the hatches are going to be taller.
Yeah.
Will it be 6 meters high hatch? Possibly. It certainly won't fit in a Starfarer.
Excuse me. I've got some dust stuck in I've got dust stuck in my nose and it's making me sneeze continuously. It's awful. All right. There we go. I'm allergic to dust and dust mites, just so everyone is aware.
That goes around in my family too.
Yeah.
I think everyone cops that.
Yeah.
It's that time of year.
I think we moved on from the ground combat. Let's actually talk about the Nova. What do you guys think? Like, personally?
It's a tank.
It's the moose.
It's a tank. A big...
Come on, it's not just a tank. It's a super heavy tank.
Yeah.
It's the moose.
What's not to like? Like, everyone wants a tank. A big tank.
Red stains on the desert floor when the infantry get in the way of you.
It's going to be all these PMCs drooling over this, going, oh, we need more tanks. Oh.
I'm interested to see... I'm going to come at it from a different angle, just to play devil's advocate. I'm interested to see what other guns they add to take out tanks. At the moment, we've got the Scourge Railgun, but I actually reckon it'll show a few others pop up along the way. Grenades specifically. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to talk about on the Nova Tank. The shield really surprised me. It's our first ground vehicle with a shield.
Oh, no. Dragonflies and Noxes have shields.
Do they really?
Yeah. Dragonfly does have a shield, very small. Not
only enough for a personnel. It only is supposed to block a couple bullets. It's not heavy or anything.
Yeah, but this thing is supposed to be heavier.
This is I assume this is to stop ship fire as well. So,
given the size of the thing, what is it?
And it kind of has an advantage too, because you tend to have to do strafing runs on ground targets. So if it can block it with a shield, by the time the ship comes around again, it's probably recharged somewhat. So if you can get a really good recharging shield on a tank, man, that'll...
Well, it doesn't have to put all its power to engines and thrusters and cooling, because it's a traditional engine and stuff. If you got most of your power plant going to weapons and shielding, that's pretty advantageous.
I got a quick question for you, because you guys are a bit more military orientated here, and I kind of wanted to know why. This is me probably playing a bit stupid, because I'm still a bit interested, but why do you think they put the turret operator in a separate room completely?
I think cool. I understand why they wanted to put the two people together with the driver and perhaps the anti-personnel turret, because then one can act as the co-pilot, and they can sort of share roles. But they obviously want to separate the gunnery of the main turret from the driver, is my thought. Because when they talked about being able to use as just one person, they said, yeah, you can use it as one person, but you can't actually move the turret.
Yeah, so, it becomes an anti-tank gun of it.
They have to move the whole tank just to move the turret. And I'm thinking that they want to discourage one-man tank type. They want to do at least a minimum of 2 people to be able to run it, which makes sense, because tanks really need 2 people. But
I think the question, well, why have him in a separate room?
Yeah, because to elaborate on my thoughts on that is, I thought the turret gunner, as in the machine gunner, if it was a traditional tank, and the turret, like the big boom fire one, they would want to communicate to be able to take out targets, because that guy's probably going to be focusing vehicles where the other guy's going to be focusing people on foot. And I just find it weird that they're not in the same room, so to speak. I found that
doesn't matter. Even in the World War II tanks, they were using mics. Yeah, they were using an intercom.
Yeah, they had the.
I don't think you're not going to be able to hear them talking. You're not going to look over your shoulder and see what's on his MFDs or anything, but
Maybe he just needs to concentrate.
I think it's more. I think it'd be interesting whether that rotates with the turret, or whether it's just a. I don't think it does, but whether it does or not, I don't know. They're probably going to go away from it and just have the screen.
I'm just so happy that they're not putting like manholes and other stupid glass things. Like, they finally get into the idea that vehicles and ships do not have to have a glass visual of what they're looking at. They have complete remote driving, turreting, all systems, all done through screens. So they're going to be using the what do they call it? The overlay system, they call it. What's that name of that now?
UFDs or
video over an image.
Render to texture.
Render to texture. Yeah, they'll use render to texture 100% for this vehicle. You will not be.
I'm surprised if a tank doesn't have something like a ball mount machine gun or weapon down the front, on lower ground. Given the size of the tank and the back, I'm surprised it doesn't have something similar at the back.
I think that's fair though, because with tanks you're supposed to bring infantry with you to be able to support against infantry coming up the side and sticking an explosive on the end, and blowing up the turrets. Even in World War II.
Yeah. Most tanks had a ball mount at the front. The Russians actually used machine gun mounts on the rear of the big tanks all the time. Yeah. And when they go on,
I was going to say, it really triggered in my head a mine sweeper variant and a mine layer. Like that's the vehicle we might see.
Well,
sorry, just triggered that into my head, and I thought I'd share.
Well, those tanks were the funnies that were built for those tanks you see with the flail at the front and the flamethrower. They were the tanks that built by the Allies mainly for the invasion of Normandy to deal with the defences. But they weren't turret-mounted things. They were actually attached to the front of the tank. Yeah. But in terms of machine guns, you look at the KV-1. The KV-1 had machine gun at the back. when the Ferdinand was introduced by the Germans, and the Germans commander says, why don't we have a machine gun at the back of the tank? And they actually wanted one, but it wasn't added. So
that may be down to the way Germans want to do tactics as very offensive as opposed to defensive type. And so the people upstairs probably thought, well, we're not going to be doing anything like that.
No, because the Ferdinand is a tank destroyer. It's not a tank.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Algared. When I look at Battlefield 1, a lot of the tanks, the older original tanks, they were glorified rooms on wheels that just had guns facing in every single direction. Is that kind of...
The Mark 1 did. Yeah. And the German tanks were like that. And they were basically land ships.
Yeah, that's what they call them in Battlefield 1.
And the idea of a tank actually came because the British, when they were developing it, said they were developing a water tanker. And so the tank comes from that idea of the code for the tank, which was a water tank. Or tonk.
So originally it was developed to cross water or something? Or?
No, that's what when they were developing it, they wanted to keep it secret from the Germans, so they said, oh yes, it's a water tank. So when they were getting supplies for it, it was for the water tank, and so tank just became the abbreviation.
Right.
But the official name was actually land ships when they were first starting.
Wow. It's funny how things stick, isn't it, when you look at that? And we like tank's such a better name than land ship. But I get what you're saying. But in Battlefield 1, they are called land ships.
In Battlefield 1, if the Germans have more than about 50 tanks, then they've got more than the Germans ever had.
No, tanks are pretty rare. I think you maybe 3 if you're ever lucky on either side.
Yeah. Depending on
because they've got a lot of multi-use, unlike other Battlefield games where you can just have one person in a tank. The tanks are kind of shit if you don't have multiple people in them. So that's the whole thing about it.
Yeah.
At the end of World War One, the Allies had over 6,000 tanks.
And to bring that back around to Star Citizen, that'll be the cool thing about the Nova, is the fact that the more people you have in it, the better it's going to be. I would personally like to see some kind of ground vehicle that's got more people in it, more than just 3. 3 seems kind of low to me. I'd like to see, I don't know, pick a number.
What do you need on modern tanks? You have your loader, you have your gunner, you have your radio operator, you have your navigator, you have your captain. Okay, this tank doesn't need.
If you wanted more people, you need a command and control based vehicle.
Yeah, so imagine if you had akin to the land ship, where you had guns firing on all sides. So I'm talking maybe 8 people. And what if you made it was more like a walker, so it actually walks along the ground. Yeah. So it's an all-terrain vehicle that walk. And I know.
Yeah, but that might be more copyright issue.
Yeah, totally Star Wars though.
Oh, no, I'm thinking, okay, you've gone to AT-AT. I'm thinking more akin to a mammoth tank. It's something I worked on many years ago. It's the legs are actually on the side of it, not directly underneath it like an AT-AT, but I'm getting into semantics now. But what I'm saying is something more akin to the gameplay of a land ship, where it's more infantry-based, and I'm not thinking it's high up either. I'm thinking it's kind of, what the Terrapin looks like?
What?
Imagine that if it was as a land vehicle. So it's like fat and stouty, and the legs are on the side of it, and it kind of
like a tick.
Walks, kind of like that, yeah. And it walks along this
like a beetle.
Walks along the surface, and you could have all your ball turrets. So you could have one on each corner of it, and then you could have guns that face forward, and then maybe a guy that comes up the top, and he's like a scanner, or he's the commander. It says, "Hey, there's guys over here. There's guys over here. Attack those," type of thing.
Well, even if you're looking at your World War I tanks. You said the World War I tanks with the turrets all over the place.
Yep.
The most popular tank we see is the Mark I. And the Mark I had 2 versions. One had 6-pounders on the side. The other, which was they called it the male, and the female had machine guns. And so they actually had one for taking out the big things and one for taking out personnel. Okay. But the tank looked the same. It was just the other things. German tanks were just like you're saying, but yeah, they only had, I think, 50 of them all up. And Australia's got one of them.
The other thing that I'd probably add into that version of the Tick, I guess we'll just call it the Tick from now because that's a good name for it, is some kind of command and control thing. So he's got an area shot of the battlefield, or in one of those globes, and he can control all the other tanks and the guys on foot. And that leads through to things like, how are you going to get information from your commander when you're on foot? Is it going to come up in your HUD, like on the top right of your HUD or whatever, and say new orders? And it does it mark things in? Have you seen the 3D map in Battlefield? You know how it can mark things. Yeah. But basically, they can mark things like an overlay. That'll be really cool. I was talking about this last night with a few people. We were talking about maps for different ships, and one of the things I'd like to be able to see is commanders drop beacons to say, "I want you to attack here."
So literally, I think for spaceships, they've talked about stuff like that before. But for ground combat, I'm not so sure.
Even ground combat, if you got your helm,
if you're in a squad, your squad leader can just like in Battlefield at the moment, you can look at like a flag in Battlefield, and you can double press Q, and it says attack here. That simple. So he can tell you a real simple order to move here or whatever, but also he can be sent orders from his commander, and it goes up. So you get this hierarchy system. So what I'm saying is there's a guy up in orbit on an Idris or whatever, and he's saying, you go here, you send your squad here, here, and here. And that goes down to a guy on the ground, and he's controlling just the tanks as an example. So he says, all tanks go here or here. And then it all filters down. And that's what they do in the real army, as far as I'm aware. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that how?
You're not wrong. I imagine we might see a dedicated AWACS-based vehicle that does that sort of communications and strategy and stuff like that. I'd like to see one.
Or as I said, if they make something like the Tick, you could just have it's got a module in it, and so instead of having the main turret gun on top, it turns into a scanner type thing, and it adds that hollow globe thing like on the.
Well, if we use our World War I tanks as an example. And I'll use the German ones because they're the ones I know more about. The German command tanks took out their main gun, put a dummy gun in there, and they had extra radio, and so they had better radios to communicate. But they took out the main gun, and they just had the machine guns.
It would have been a lot lighter without the main gun and the ammunition too.
So they had an extra crewman in there because they had the radio operator. But generally, your command tanks had a dummy gun and no ammo, extra radio operator, so you'd have 2 or 3 radios in there with extra range, so bigger aerials. But yeah.
There's a question there in chat, guys. Okay, so how does the tank fit into the future of SC land combat? Not a theoretical question or a rhetorical. Did you say rhetorical or theoretical?
Not a rhetorical question.
Tanks need support to survive, and that's kind of why I was asking those questions about the other guns that will come in first person.
One vehicle or 2 vehicles right now that fit in to the whole landscape of ground combat really well. One would be the Tumbril Cyclone as a recon, or even just as a light personal carrier, like a quick scout, get from A to B, just to move some troops. The other one is the Ursa Rover, which is purely troop carrier. That we don't have any other vehicles that is going to fight this right now. What do you think?
Well, I would say the Scourge Railgun
will be in future, though.
Scourge Railgun was the only other thing I'd add to that.
Yeah, that's an infantry-based weapon. Which,
at
the moment,
and if you look at the speeds of the land vehicles we've got at the moment, the little motorbikes, the Dragonfly and the Nox there, sitting around 122, 155 meters a second apparently, and 220 meters a second. The Cyclone has no speed at the moment listed, so we can't even hint at that. They're saying the Ursa Rover has a speed of 40 meters a second, and this thing has 20 meters a second. That's still bloody fast.
All the vehicles we have at the moment are based on traversal as opposed to fighting. Like, none of them really fight against the Nova. Yes.
No.
That will come in future, though. This is like the start of something bigger.
At its most simple level, the EMP grenade.
Yeah, that's right. You want to knock it out, EMP.
Getting close.
EMP missile. What if you have a Tumbril Cyclone AA with EMP missiles? And you unload all 4 of them on the thing long enough to knock it out, and then you breach the door of Marines.
I just have
I would say EMP mines.
EMP it, and then, as you said, breach the back door. I was literally thinking of that welder thing they showed today in the thing. Like, just weld the back door, and it all comes down, and you just chuck a grenade.
Throw in the grenade. It's like
chuck a mine in to detrack it. Once a tank loses its tracks, it's a sitting duck.
Yeah.
It
sounds like the type of vehicle you're going to have to defuse rather than kind of take on.
Yep.
Well, you can take it on, but you'll take it on with superior numbers.
Well,
but if it's 1-to-1, sounds like you want to. The bee and the wasp. What was that? No, the wasp and the spider. You ever heard of that spider? There's a wasp. It can only lay its eggs in the hair of a particular spider, and so it has to kill this spider and then drag this spider back to the nest it's built. It's anyway. I'm getting into semantics, but yeah, it's very impressive. So it's the same analogy. Or David and Goliath. There's a simple analogy.
Well, the thing is, you take a tank out like this and you don't bring, like, I don't know, 3 Marines on a Tumbril Cyclone just to be able to handle stuff that might incapacitate the tank. I think it's sort of like when you take your Idris out with no fighters. It works well together with infantry.
Yeah.
And infantry work well with it. It's like a complementary type of a deal.
Again, I'll go back to my World War II Germans. And yes, you're picking up where my my non-star citizen interests lie. But German heavy tanks were the Tiger. If you had a battalion of German tanks, you had a company of Tigers, and you had a company of Mark IIIs. Mark IIIs, that's a puny little, the tank that was popular at 1939, and it's got a long barrel, and its job is to take care of the lighter things coming up on the Tiger. And so the Germans had that idea of, okay, you don't send this thing in by itself. And where the tanks got thrown into, where their tanks were thrown into the grinder at Stalingrad, the German tank, the tank divisions didn't want to go there, but they had to just to shore up the infantry. They were kind of pulled in piecemeal. Tanks that you usually want to use in your urban fighting are not tanks. They're not the long-barreled weapons. You send your Stugs in. You send in your vehicles that are deliberately aimed at knocking up buildings with the high explosive shells, not your tanks with the armor piercing. This is, so yeah, we got a whole need of different vehicles. Like the story of the Novas holding off the Tavaran in the pass and knocking out Tavaran troop ships as they were trying to frontal assault them just shows that Tavaran are absolutely useless tacticians. Why not just fly around the rear and attack from infantry from the rear?
They're also talking about, they've already talked about building a smaller tank. It's like, there'll be more tanks in future, and we're going to build a smaller one, than this. And that's the whole idea. It's building up an ecosystem. This is the first landmark thing that is sort of setting the stage for where things are going to go in future. And so it's not just going to be Novas. We're going to have smaller scale, heavy gun-based equipment.
Yeah, I could see.
And it'll be the sort of thing like, you don't just take a Nova, you take a Nova and maybe 2 smaller tanks, an APC, a bunch of Marines with you, and then you have a nice balanced force that can deal
or you have your
with everything. Your
anti-tank gun, your towed anti-tank gun type thing set up in a position. You have your tank destroyers where you've got to fix, get the tank, put a bigger gun on that thing, but not enable it to turn.
This gun's not really meant for smaller light targets or infantry. This tank is meant to take out heavy installations, heavy vehicles, and defend against spacecraft. This protects everything else it takes along with it. That's what
I think it's going to really show where this is going to lead as they add other vehicles to the ground combat scenario. I think it's really going to dictate where it's going to go. And I think the other interesting thing is if they add things, I don't know how to put this, wrongly, I think the community will stand up and say, hey, we need this. We need this because you can have this, we need this. And I think they're going to really, they are starting to listen more, but it's still, I think the biggest problem I'm having with CIG at the moment is their PR department they don't feel like gamers. And so some of the stuff they're pushing...
but you got to admit, this Nova is the first step in the right direction with regards to ground combat they've ever made.
Yes, but to give you a counter example, no multi-Nova packs.
Yeah, this is right.
How do you mean
multi-Nova? Who are the sort of people who are buying these Novas? You've got PMC groups, and you've got large orgs who probably have already ability to transfer these things, or people who want ground claims defended.
What would have been good, I think, is a Novus or a land or a Marine starter pack.
Yeah.
So sell the Nova with a game pack.
You asked what I meant by multi-Nova pack. Yep. At the moment, you can buy it singly, or you can buy it with every other land vehicle that came out this year.
Yeah, and
Why is
multiples of
there?
every land vehicle. Like, what is it? 4 Tumbril Cyclones? It's like...
Yeah, why isn't there something called like the Idris Master Pack?
Yeah, with 3
So
Tumbrils.
you get well, 3 Novas and an Idris, or just a smaller pack that has 3 Novas, so you can put them in your Idris or something like that. Like considering,
I would say the reason you don't have an Idris Nova pack is because basically the Idris is, even though it can land, it is basically a light carrier.
Yeah,
you know,
it can carry tanks. It's great.
It could carry tanks, but ideally it is your light. It is your light rover. It's your light. Sorry, your light carrier.
No, it's your light everything ship. They even said that. They said that on the stream. It's the everything ship.
It is the everything ship, and it's the everything ship because it's Squadron 42, and that's the main ship we use.
Point I'm trying to make, Algared, is they specifically kind of, you're going to want to have multiples of this tank, right? So rather than giving us a package that has multiple tanks, they gave us a package that has multiple Tumbrils.
Cyclones.
Yes. Okay.
Again, this is what I'm trying to say just a minute ago, is they don't seem to have their pulse on the community. This is the PR department. They seem they need to find one person that has their pulse on the community that they run this stuff by. I was saying that to Haze earlier today. It makes so much.
$900 pack, and it has 2 Dragonflies, 2 Nox. It has 5
Tumbrils,
4 or 5 Cyclones, and it only has 1 tank. It has 2. All the X.
It has one Ursa, but it also doesn't have the links, so it doesn't have all the vehicles.
Or it doesn't have the Origin rover either.
Yeah, it doesn't have the Origin rover or the links or the so it's still missing.
You put something like the Polaris or the Hammerhead or the Pioneer next to it, you just go, such a better deal.
Yeah.
Would it fit in a Polaris?
Yeah, I don't think there's a ramp for the Polaris, but I'm not sure it has enough cargo. It's only 200 SU in cargo. Well, I mean, that's about the size of a Taurus. I think it's pushing it.
If it doesn't fit in the Starfarer, I don't think it's going to fit in the Polaris or Hammerhead.
It would fit in the Starfarer, except for the door.
They've said it doesn't. Yeah, that's kind of physical strain, Algared.
The height that actually stops it getting in the Starfarer. Because the Ursa only just fits. You can just squeeze it in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's no way that tank's going through the front door.
There's no way that's going through the front door of a Starfarer.
That said, though, it would have been a great vehicle to put into the Hammerhead. I can see that combat mentality. It covers it as it comes. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying if. That's why I said if. You got the covering turrets. It comes in and the tank rolls out and boom. Yeah, so you would have had a nice little covering.
The tractor beam's holding it in between that void. Lodged in between that void.
Won't fit in there. But anyway, we can dream.
Hey, we can dream. We can dream.
I reckon that Starlifter is really
necessary.
I think they had when they talked about the Starlifter, I think they even talked about bringing in a tank or heavier land vehicle, and I think they already had
an idea,
the Nova in mind when they were talking about it.
I go back to what Dyson said when we were talking about the Starlifter, and it would have been just think of this visually. I know it's never going to happen because of size restraints, but the Caterpillar holding 4 in its modules, holding 4 Nova tanks, and the lifter comes along and just kind of picks them out of the side of the Caterpillar and then flies off down to the planet and drops them off.
I think the tank would be too big for a cat to fit in a module, but
I know what you're saying. That's what I said.
I know what you're saying.
I did say, can you imagine? Because I know
I know what you're saying. It'd be one of those cool things to see, and I think that was the idea.
If they ever put ramps on the Caterpillar, I could see them maybe fitting rovers, but that's the limit.
Yeah. I could see that Starlifter, going up, coming up the side, sucking things out of a cat, going down, and then taking it into land.
I don't know if you know that, Haze. I'm pretty sure you do, but you know how those doors open on the side of the Caterpillar? They actually lower down to the ground.
Yeah, and I really wish they instead.
And then they close. Yeah. Well, it is going to make harder to get a rover in there. But I reckon you could.
Jeez.
Well, even a Tumbril, because you're going to have to park it kind of sideways to get it up, and then you've got to get it from sideways into the thing.
The front one's big enough that might be able to do that, but the side ones look really thin.
If it's just a ramp that goes down, then you don't try and drive in side on. You drive in
Yeah.
long ways, and then it goes up.
Maybe they'll make some kind of thing that you can have in the cargo bay that's like a ramp that you can move along from section to section, and then you can just drive vehicles into it. I don't know. Caterpillar needs something, doesn't it, though? Because Caterpillar's in a weird place at the moment.
Yeah, it needs everything they can give it, I think. That's when these bigger ships come out and it has to compete against them, people are like, why don't I have a Starfarer? Why don't I have a bigger ship that's, similar price?
Do I take an Orion or do I take a Caterpillar?
Yeah, that's a big question, isn't it? Big question.
Big question. I'm going to go Orion.
The one thing you've got to keep in the back of your mind, though, guys, is there has to be stepping stone ships.
Yeah, and the Caterpillar is one of those stepping stone ships.
It's going to be its place, but I think it's going to have limited numbers because they're stepping stones. They're going to be like, cool, I got this ship, I'm going to move on and now upgrade to another one.
It's also one of those good ships for NPCs.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's so multi-role, you'll see tons of them out of the place doing different things.
I want to talk about something that I really found exciting today, the Avenger. I think this is a really big thing for the game. I know Algared's a bit excited about it because they've now made it like an advanced starter, which is where it needed to be, in my opinion.
It already was. It just further cemented its position, I think.
One thing that I find a slight drawback for today is that they didn't put the Reliant Core on special. I think they should have done that as well. I think all. Yes, it is. It's the only official advanced starter. But I think now from today we could probably start calling the Avenger an advanced starter. I think they.
Well, they've called it that, so.
Yeah, I'd like to see 3 starters and 3 advanced starters. In my opinion, I think that's.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I'm. We're gonna do. I know. Look, I'm gonna let some things out of the bag here. We're gonna do a show next week on starter ships. One of the things I'm going to add from today is I'd like you guys to think about what you would like to see as another starter ship. So we've got a Mustang and we've got an Aurora. Don't answer this now. Just put it in your head. What would, and we'll talk about next week. So what would you like to see as another advanced starter? Cool. And, not an advanced starter, as a default starter.
Well, we've already got the default starter because they voted on it.
Don't talk about it. Just think about it. Anyway, tuning next week. So getting back to the Avenger, what did you guys think? I was really impressed. Personally.
Definitely impressed.
I'm already a diehard love fan of the Avenger. It's just one of those ships that's grown on me over the years. It's beautiful, it flies well, it's functional. The fact that it's grown out and isn't such a cramped mess in future, I think it's
what I hated about it was that cramped crawlway. Yeah. I love the entry. I love the look of it. I hated that cramped crawlway to get to the cockpit. They've done away with that.
Just on that cramped hallway thing, there was a few ships that had that in mind, and they seem to have removed it completely from the game.
Yeah, the Mustang had it.
I'm a bit. Also, the Vanguard had it, and they got rid of that in the concept. That is. I think that would have been a really cool feel to have in the game. Personally, I can see why people don't like it, but when it's a cheaper ship, I think it's kind of cool and warranted, and things do need a slight drawback.
I actually liked that cramped entrance in the Mustang, but what you got with the cramped entrance was too many collisions, and that's why they got it. That's why they said they got rid of it on the Avenger, and I bet 10-1 it's why they got rid of it on the Vanguard. 10-1 why they got rid of it on the Mustang as well. Those cramped conditions just.
As long as the cramped conditions are exclusively internal, I would not have a problem with it. And believe it or not, we've still got cramped quarters on the Starfarer. So
we've still got cramped space on the
Starfarer is always going to be a mess. Don't start.
I think I've said this to you before, Haze. I think at some point the Starfarer will get redone. They've mentioned they're going to redo ships over time and have a new model. I think there'll be a new model of the Starfarer.
It's going to be the last ship to be redone because it's actually in a usable state at the moment, unlike all the other ones that have been pushed out.
No, you know when they said they might bring out new models of ships as time goes on, I think they'll leave the ship as it is now because it's functional. Yep. And a couple of years after the game's released, they'll redo the Starfarer, or the internals at the very least of the Starfarer.
It's just the internals that need to be scrapped and redone. Just the internals.
Yeah, the Avenger itself, I didn't think it could get more NASA space-like, but after today, when you look at that it's kind of a hallway now of the ship, but it's got those submarine-y style doors which you actually see on.
Yeah, it feels so homey now as well. It's beautiful.
I really liked it. And the cargo bay just feels huge compared to the last one.
Given that they said the Stalker has got the 6 cells in it, whereas I think the last one, the original Stalker, only had 1, and they
no, it had 6.
It had 6, but the fact that you can actually take those cells out, you know,
you're always able to do that. Yeah.
Why have a Titan when I can have a Stalker and just take the cells out?
Because you can buy the Titan for cheaper and just put those modules in game.
So I can buy the Titan for what, 55 or 60?
I can't remember
Titan
the price.
Should be $50 and the Stalker's 60.
Yeah, it's like $10 extra.
$10 for 6 cells.
What really at this point in time, what you're looking at is, do I want I forgot the name of them, the guns that remove shields, or do I want like lasers? That's basically the difference, really, fundamentally, between the two. Also, I guess at the moment, if you have the bounty ones in the back and you can't take them out at the moment, you can't put cargo in there. So,
in eventual release, though, the idea that I could have 2 bounty things and take some cargo with me, that's such a versatile ship.
Yeah, that makes it the most versatile of all those.
I'd have to say for 3.0. For 3.0, the Avenger Titan would be the better variant to go with.
But at the moment, you can't buy the Titan.
When you think
you can only buy
from the hot,
you can only buy the Stalker.
Bounties are just cargo after you catch them. There's something special about that. You should be anything that can take cargo should be able to, supposedly, if you have a container for it, be able to store it and take them in.
Yeah, I think that's an error on the Hawk where they said no, you can't take cargo. You've just got the person. I think ideally you actually want to.
If you can have those modules go in instead of cargo, what's to say that you just can't have those containers as cargo containers, and they go on any ship?
Yeah, it's like you've like a whole bunch of them on a Starfarer,
because they do look more to be more than just a pod. They're a pod that've got some kind of power
or
something
in
like
it.
Yeah. So if they
have some prison ship,
if they have some kind of power draw on the ship, then I can understand. That makes sense, and it should have a power draw on the ship.
Yeah. Well, you've got from the stream, you've got the cryogenic chambers that are getting ready for the banner to pick up.
Yeah.
It's
your
fully.
Purpose.
I can fully.
Guys and the bad guys.
I can fully see that as a cargo mission. Deliver these people from A to B, and then some pirates given a mission to intercept that cargo and try and steal it off you. And then hold them hostage, and if you fail, that leads to someone else getting a mission to rescue these guys that were stolen from Cryo. It'll be interesting.
Yep.
Or you can steal guys in Cryo from someone else and sell them to a bunch of illegal experimentation on an Endeavor.
Yeah, and they get impregnated with aliens.
Yes.
I saw the movie. I know what you're talking about.
but I do stand corrected. I have been told that the Titan is available at $50. But when I was looking earlier, I couldn't see it. But
can't buy the Renegade, he says there. So
that's an extra $10 skin, isn't it?
Yeah, $10 for the skin.
Yeah.
Although I think it has different weapons and different mounts.
It does, but it's just different weapons, not more of something.
Yeah, but some of the ships had
that would actually Haze put tests on an important point there. If you were paying $10 for the skin and additional weapons, worth it. When it replaces the weapons you have, in my opinion, not worth it.
Well, depends on whether the mount, it may have the same number of weapons, but if the missile mounts are larger missile mounts, and that becomes a different kettle of fish. That's like having a different weapon. So you downgrade the missile, add more.
Those advanced flight series were, what did they call them? They called them specials or something?
They're called collector's editions now.
Collectors, I think it's something.
Yeah.
Not a natural variant.
Back back when they announced them for the Saber Comet and stuff like that, I brought one, but I never applied it. And I get to the point where I ended up selling the upgrade because I preferred the guns on the normal one to the skin one, and I even preferred the look of the skin because I like the black and red opposed to the grey and blue. And I just couldn't justify $15 for a skin and a couple of guns. And that way, when I look at it with how you just said it, that would be an incentive. In a weird way, it makes it like a buck. I mean, it's a couple of guns that you can have additionally to what you have, but then I think it starts to tread on the area of Voyager Direct, so I think that's probably why they haven't done.
Well, I think once 3.0 actually implemented, they'll start selling those skins separately so that you can mix and match as opposed to... You know?
Definitely, I definitely think vanity items is something going forward for CIG. I see that as like they talk about you can only buy credits when the game goes live, but I think a lot of vanity items are going to be the way they fund the servers.
Yeah.
And
look, the vanity
I have no problem with that at all.
The skins, they'll sell. Like I'd love to see them do additional skins. I'd love to see the Aurora have a racing skin. Now, I'll probably,
I think the Aurora's got more skins than any other ship in the game currently.
It does have more skins, but I'd still like to see it have a racing skin.
That's a really quick question. Have you guys purchased the skins from the store?
Yes. I
have them all. Some of them aren't available anymore.
I do have them all.
They're only $5 each, so I brought all of them, and it was about $30 worth, I think, in total for all of them. So I picked them all up, and now, as I said, some of them are just not available.
Yep, I did the same thing. It was actually, I think I actually went and hunted them all down at one point when a certain alternate gamer was saying how wonderful his game was and how stupid Star Citizen was. So I went, F you.
Yeah.
And went and bought them.
Just on a side note, there's one called We've Got Your Back skin.
Yeah.
I think they need to promote that, and that can be the one that funds the legal costs.
Oh, yes.
Rename it the Otto and Revenge skin.
Yes. Yeah, something like, or make another skin. Look, I can guarantee you right now, if they wanted to see how, I can tell you people that would throw people would throw money to make this problem go away.
Well, they've got one called "Give Us Your Money."
Yeah,
there is that. But you don't get a cool skin.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, there's a few of them. There's We've Got Your Back, and there's the money one, and then
Take My Money.
I think the rarest one I've got is one that came out for the Aurora, and it was by
the Southwest.
Yeah, I've got that one. That one is one of the rarest ones, and that it's only for the Aurora though, which is really weird. And I don't even own an Aurora, so
yeah. Look, you should get yourself an Aurora. Everyone should have an Aurora.
Mm.
How can you enter the Crux Cup if you don't have an Aurora? Seriously.
I don't enter it. That's how.
Sorry?
I don't enter it. That's how.
Technically, I can't.
I'm terrible at racing. I'm terrible. Look, I was going to commentate that last year, but things changed and it didn't end up going through. Maybe we should host it this year, considering we're all.
Algared, you said you wanted to start commentating for the Crux Cup.
Yeah.
Starting next.
We've just stopped it. Algared, and Algared's going to be doing it this year.
I'll need a co-host.
Yeah, that's right. Me and Haze will come in every 5 to 10 minutes and say hello.
No. Oh joy! Oh joy! Digging out of a hole that I dig myself in when you're away, right?
Look, I think that's the other thing about Star Citizen. I'll just say that real quick. There's different areas of this game that people are going to love and people are going to hate, and I think that's the other massive appeal of it. Is everyone's going to be able to find their niche. So
yeah,
racing, I can appreciate the skill in it. It's just not for me. So a lot of the vehicles.
I love it. I suck at it.
There you go. So things like the Nox, I've really lost. Like when I first saw that, I had a lot of interest in the Nox, but now it's just all about speed. It's got no function.
Yeah.
So I just find it useless. And there are a lot of ships that are like that. So all the racing ships. And the really ironic thing is, there's some of the coolest looking ships, especially like the Misk Razor. I really love the look of that ship, but.
Yeah. I actually think the Misk Razor is the best racing ship they've put out because the decals they've got on it actually look like a racer. The one they did for the Gamma, the colour on it just doesn't seem right. In terms of the contrast with the brands, all the brands are the same colour.
the function of racing ships, when you take it away from the racing, is literally they're an A to B transport ship. So I think they will have a place, believe it or not, just not a broad appeal. But I definitely think if they have events, like maybe a quarterly racing event that's in different parts of the universe,
well, we know that
go watch it. It'll have a social event.
We know the Murray Cup is going to be an in-game race. We know that they're going to have other races in the verse that lead up to the Murray Cup. I think in the law you've got to win 3 competitions to be able to enter the Murray Cup, and so to plug the My Joy, the Crux Cup, that was one of the background things we put in for it. It was a race that kind of became one of those qualifying matches for the Crux, for the Murray Cup.
To give you an alternative though, what if they did something like Running Man? So, can you see that? Like, so it's a bounty hunting race event. I would watch that to the cows home.
But they have talked about live fire racing.
Yeah,
so that is an event where you got ships being able to do the live fire racing, because there'll be people who want to do that type of nasty.
I love the bounty idea there. Except there's 2 different sets of people racing. There's the bounties who are trying to race to get away, and then you've also got the hunters who are racing to pick up their target and try and deliver it before the other guy can do his.
I've actually, this is going to sound like a complete tangent, but I actually had an idea for a TV show in the real world where, give an example, like if we chose Australia, someone's trying to get from one city in Australia to the other, but they can't use like modern terms of transport, and people have to try and track them down using social media and that, and whoever actually finds them wins a huge prize pool. But if they get to the other side, they win the prize pool. I thought that would be a really cool TV.
I have seen a similar show where they had a guy was going up against the security things of a nation. So, you'd go in, I've got to get from here to here, and they'd go up against the security forces of a nation or someone, and they'd try and stop them getting there and try and track them down. So a very similar thing. It has been done. It was quite pleasant to watch. But yeah. Anyway, back on track.
We are so off topic here. We haven't even talked about the main event.
Just hang on. Darren's kind of said there in chat, racer, fast eyes on a scout ship. I think the only thing that would detract from it being a scout, Darren, is the lack of sensors. But if you can get sensors on it...
And range.
Yep. Anyway, on to Squadron 42 then.
Yeah, Squadron 42, oh, my god. 24 hours late, but well worth the wait. And
yes, definitely.
I enjoyed it every bit. It was eye candy. Unfortunately, Twitch wasn't really doing the full quality of what I think they wanted. Have they put it up on YouTube yet? Last I checked, they hadn't converted it to YouTube. They probably want a higher quality sort of feed.
Once it's on YouTube, I'll go and watch it on.
I'll rewatch it again.
Load it up to the TV.
A lot of that imagery, like in space and stuff, was very low quality on.
It's up. It went up an hour ago.
Okay, when we started.
Yeah, that'd be right. But yeah, in terms of what it looked, one big thing was people have been saying, people look at the old Morrow Tour and say, the characters suck. And we were told, even back then, this is just early stuff. We're going to see them upgrade it. And I think what we saw today was definitely an upgrade.
Yeah, well,
I actually think Colton looks much better with his goatee than he looked in the short we had last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe it's just because I'm sporting one, but hey.
All the systems they really needed, like the subsumption, the walking systems, the NPCs being able to do stuff, and pathways, and it's all showing off. Like right now, it looks almost complete. It's got a few little glitches here and there, and could use a little bit more polish, but it looks better implemented than any other game I've seen.
Oh hell, I've played when I first played Lord of the Rings Online, and it was live. We had pathing issues. When I played Dark Age of Camelot, there were pathing issues all the time. You had a buddy following you, and an NPC or a pet following you. It would get hung up all the time. You just wouldn't be able to get through. So you could see they've actually worked hard on the pathing. You could see the NPCs walking by. So yeah, they've worked on the pathing. They've worked on how the character interacts. Even the eye contact of the characters, you could see that as well. So yeah, it was.
all the engine effects, the graphics effects, the shaders, and everything about it, even the space traversal, even interacting with objects. Like, you know, it wasn't perfect and seamless, but it was enough. The object was there, and it was enough to get a general animation of showing it getting into your hand. It was. I thought that was really well done. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be.
And people will say, you know, well, the space flight scenes were too long. But I actually think, yeah, they could have cut them out and made it seem shorter. But by doing as they did, what they showed was, this is a game, and this is roughly how long it's going to take, and this is what we're looking at. And the length actually felt about right. You know, you don't want it to be quick if you're flying there. Otherwise, it reduces that sense of size. Why have a massive universe like that, you know? So
I've dropped the link to the video, by the way, in chat there if anyone wants to watch it after the stream.
Thanks.
No worries.
But yeah, you know, so I think it's well done, and you get the sense of that linear story. The graphics are looking good. Yeah,
ground combat looked pretty well done too.
If you add that up, there's said to be 70+ missions in the campaign too, so you can kind of get an idea of how long it's going to be, which is quite.
I imagine it's one of those games you could probably finish it in 30 hours, or you could spend several days, depending on how much you want to explore.
How much you want to sit around and listen to all the dialogue and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In terms of the pacing, I thought at times it was a bit long, like when he was walking. But I think, like walking around the Idris at the start, when waiting for the mission to start, waiting to be called to the thing. Yeah, it did feel long at times, but
that was
Lieutenant. Yeah. But I think part of that was also deliberately done, just showing its
previous Morrow Tour.
Yeah, just showing the areas again,
show the contrast.
Walking around.
It's not even comparable anymore compared to the original Morrow Tour.
I would actually like to see them to do that with two other things. One of the things I wanted to see, because they showed off Shubin, was I wanted to see. Remember the mining drone, that really huge mining drone? I want to see that if it's still in the game. And the other thing I want to see is the Bishop's speech.
Yep. I'd like to be able to be have it as a news item, just on a TV screen, seeing it. One thing I'm not a fan of is the inner thought process.
It
has a slight jarring to it, I have to admit.
Keep it frosty.
It is so Chris.
I don't want to hear my inner voice. You've got the inner voice ideas on the screen.
I think it's fine on the screen.
I didn't have a problem with it being relayed as you moused over it. I think it's a bit what Haze is about to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Haze, is it's a little janky how it works. They have to smooth that out of it. And it's the same thing in the PU at the moment. If you try and use it, a lot of the disorientation or the immersion breaking stuff is trying to find the point where you can interact with to get into something or whatever.
Even you could see them trying to interact with something and then trying to get the mouse. It was a bit janky, like you said. It wasn't as smooth and as natural as it should be.
They've got
some of those things.
Two colours. They've got the yellow, which is this is something you can interact with, and orange when you're over it that you can interact with. And I would like to see, the scroll wheel. So once you mouse over it, you don't actually have to be on it.
The mouse pointer. Yep.
Just scroll the mouse wheel.
Scroll the mouse and it'll do the choice. Yep. Yeah. And I reckon we'll see that, because most games do that type of thing when you've got the, once you pick the area. One thing I still don't like that sound of him thinking, what I'm going to do, because that's what you're doing when you're doing a choice. And to me, it just takes away from the script.
That's really easy to fix, man. Put an option in to turn it off for people like you that don't want it on. But I actually like that, and so just to give you a counterpoint, I like that. So more options is better. And I think that's the thing that the community is going to push for, is more options.
If it actually gave you an idea of what he was actually going to say, rather than just repeating what the text was, yeah, fine. But, because I know in some games, you go, right, I want to do this. And when you click on it and he speaks, you go, it's totally the opposite of what you're expecting he was going to say.
Yeah, but I can relate to that.
If he's just saying, if I've got the option of keep it frosty, and all he says is, yeah, keep it frosty, how does that help me know what he's going to say?
That's what saves and reloads are for, Algared.
Yeah, but we've got to go to bed to reload.
What do you think of the main, like, your character voice that, you know, had the inner voices or responded when they spoke back? I thought it was a bit of a weak. I didn't like the voice. It's just me?
What didn't you like?
I think it's a bit pedantic, personally. I don't care one way or the other. But yeah, I see what you mean by a bit weak. He sounds a bit weak. But
he was very weak-willed.
Yeah, but then again, there are a lot of games that are like, to an extreme would be Duke Nukem, that are way too over the top. And
my favorite is Half-Life, where the main character doesn't say anything.
Yep.
And you imagine everything yourself.
There are kind of restraints to that.
Yeah, well, I think they did that initially with but
you don't make options in Half-Life. In Half-Life, it's completely linear.
No, but if you had text only, you could think about in your own mind what you sound like.
In Wing Commander, you did that. You selected the text, and then in the movie, she responded to what you'd said in the text, but you didn't hear your voice, so you could imagine you doing the speaking. So, yeah, I can see that, and part of me likes it. Part of me likes not that reading, but it also enabled, if I could get rid of that inner thought speaking, then what I get, it's like watching a miniseries, as one of the guys has said. You know, I get the text, I get the reaction. To me, it fits. But that inner voice to me kills it. And
I think the inner thought system, when you really break it down to the problem for me, and this is something they're going to have to work on, is the text is in the world. It's not like, and they've done it for immersion regions, it's in the world, not just in front of your screen. And I don't see why they can't just have it on your screen and you select one. I don't understand why it has to be attached to a character, attached to a light switch, attached to an object. Why can't, when you interact with it, it just brings it up directly in front of your screen and you press 1, 2, 3, or 4 and it answers the question? They've done it because they want this immersion factor. Problem is, it's almost immersion breaking as it currently sits.
Well, it's their first iteration. It is very clunky at the moment. We all agree on that. Whether we solve that through a mouse scroll or have numbers, I think the best of both worlds is when you have a UI that responds to both shortcuts, has good UI that's usable. So why not have it respond to mouse scroll and key numbers and allow you to click it with the mouse?
And I think in the long run you'll get that because it'll fit with the different control systems.
And you see that in system like Windows. There's shortcut keys for things, and there's always multiple ways to do things, and that's what I was kind of hinting at before. The more options you give the community,
the better
on anything, the better. So how do you want to control it? How do you want to use it? And they've kind of shown that. They've kind of shown that. But I actually think. There are a lot of people that are going to not like how the words are placed in world. They're going to want an option where they just put them on the screen in front of them. It is a little disorientating, especially with some of the bugs at the moment. And I know I'm being nitpicky here because it is in PTU, but there are some ships that you can't get into because you're too close to it or too far away, and
or the button's in the wrong position. So I know with the Starfarer at the moment, you go to the door to use the door on the inside, and to actually access the door, you've actually got to look kind of down near the base of the door to actually interact with that button.
That's right. So getting out of things like the Dragonfly, you've got to look extremely to the left, but why can't I look extremely to the right and get out? They're not intuitive, but the redeeming feature at the moment is you can press G or H and you automatically get out of it.
Well, for some of those ships where you've got your access point on the one side, it makes sense to have that exit option on only that side where you've got the
ships. Yes, but some of the bikes, like the Dragonfly,
some of the bikes, then that you're right. It doesn't seem to make sense in that regard. But I'm having a feeling we've drifted off topic again.
Yeah, let's get into the Idris because they showed so much of the Idris. We've never seen it in so much detail and beauty.
Absolutely.
As it was really, it shows you how complete it is. And I think the only thing that they're missing is getting the new item system 2.0 to work with how complex it is. I think they haven't had the time to do that, and that's why we'll never see it in 3.0. It's not ready.
And the other thing that they said as they were talking about the Idris in the ship shape was that basically this is our test bed. Everything we do on the Idris first, and I when we finish this, I'm going to go and read my copy of Jump Point because it's
I haven't watched that yet.
So, yeah,
Look, I even said this to you guys before the show. It's one of those ships I kind of want to own now because it's going to be more polished and buffed than any other ship in the game because purely it's just the main HQ of the Squadron 42.
Well,
it's going to have extra...
the Idris M will be the most polished.
Yeah, but it's going to have extra...
sort of ship.
It's going to have extra details, extra work done on it that the others just don't have because... that'll have been brought up to par. And unfortunately, knowing game development like I do, the other ships just won't quite ever get to that same level.
You might get a similar thing with the Javelin, only because they'll be stealing so many bits from the Idris that actually cross. But it's not going to be that same amount of polish that you get with the Idris, unless we're actually stationed on the Javelin and got to use the Javelin.
It'd be interesting. What we're really missing was the UI elements in the ship. That was the only thing that was really out of place.
Yep. They didn't have any really form sort of HUD. There was no real sort of HUD. Look, if I went through and gave a negative list, it's not as long as you would think. There was no real sights on guns. That's something I would like to see, but that's not something that's really pivotal in the PTU over at the moment, so it's obviously something I haven't worked on. The AI was okay-ish, but I didn't really see enough of it in combat to clearly go, hey, this is up to par. I think it looked a little dumb at the moment, but that's just from what I saw.
Like they weren't even trying for the first part of the fights, and then suddenly he actually tries to actually aim and then shoots one down. It's like...
And you're talking about Lieutenant. I've lost him. Yep. I've lost him. Everybody in the place said they'd lost him.
Find him. It's around here somewhere.
Yeah. So they've obviously got to work on their... They haven't done many scripting lines. That's fine. We know they recorded them. It's just a matter of programming. But what you need to do is kind of look at this as an updated Morrow Tour and go, wow, that's increased from there.
It's a vertical slice.
Yeah. So that was 2 years from the last time, and that's a huge jump in quality.
Yeah. Jump in quality, jump in the content, jump in the interaction, jump in
the engine, what it can do.
So the real question is how long to jump to the final product. What would you guys like? I've heard people call as early as halfway through next year. No. Where do you guys think?
2020.
I would. Again, I did think I saw on the Squadron 42 plug was at 2018. Squadron 42. So
right, it's 2017 still. Okay, yeah, early 2019.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
So I would say if they've got 2018 as being when it's coming, and I'd have to go back and have a look at that start screen. That for some reason I've just got the 2018 in my head. Squadron 42 2018. If that is the case, they'll be looking at it at the end of the year. And I would imagine that it will be even the first few missions. It won't be a whole lot. It'd be like the first installment, the first chapter.
Yeah, if they're going to do it kind of episodically.
There you go, summer 2018 apparently.
Yeah.
Then you could probably see it in summer 2018. But if you're talking the entire game, I think it will be the end of 2018.
I reckon we'll see just like they're doing quarterly updates. I reckon we'll see the first chapter or two, and then we'll see the others start to come in.
Do you know what will be the real ticker for it? Is they announced today in the ATV that they're going to be doing monthly updates for Squadron 42. Within, let's say 3 months from now, we'll give you a window of how much that's progressing. And if they give you show some key stuff, you'll be able to very quickly see how quickly it is progressing. And the one thing that I was looking at, I know it's going to sound really weird, was the movement of NPCs. And the movement of NPCs where they were walking from one location to the other was exceptional. What was missing there was interaction animations. There were some, but not all. And we've seen that in previous ones where people are standing on chairs, people would walk up to something and just stand there and not interact with it. So it's those...
the guy who was walking slowly out of the cafeteria and then sped up the second you got to him.
Yeah, but to give it to his credit, he turned to his side to let people walk past him.
Yeah.
little cool things like that. So it's just getting. I think they're working those animations in is going to be. It's really going to put up the level of quality, but I can tell the groundwork is there. They are getting into a level of polish, and they would have polished that level quite excessively. Even if you look at ATV, I saw when they were giving the tour around the area, I later saw those scenes in the tour, and the one I'm particularly thinking of, if you go back through it, there was a guy that had when he went through the vents, there was the spinning fan thing with all the light moving around. I saw that on one screen, and then I later saw it in the actual thing. So they have been polishing the shit out of this to try and get it up as much as they can. The one other negativity, now I think of it, was frame rate drops. There were...
I'm not sure if that was Twitch, though. I think that might have been...
It could have been Twitch, but there was like almost like pulses. I don't know how to explain it. So it'd play normally, then slow down. Play normally, then slow down. That could very much have been Twitch, though. But again, I'll watch it on YouTube. But it's just something to keep an eye out. We have had CPU spikes in the PTU of late too, so it could carry over to single player. It could be an engine issue, not a networking issue.
This is the other thing, though, Squadron 42 takes great advantages from all the actual base engine advances they will be making over the next 12 to 18 months. Whether it be shader or just general engine or the subsumption system updates. There's a lot of stuff that comes along that make this game a lot greater. Because 3.0, I hate to tell you, is tied to Squadron 42, because once they really get the base background cemented systems well polished and working well, that helps out Squadron 42. I
always saw the initial game that CIG were producing was Squadron 42, and the PU was a module of Squadron 42.
Yeah. So it won't be until 3.2, 3.3 that those systems have been iterated enough and polished enough and are working coherent and seamlessly. Then Squadron 42 will be in a good position to go to final release.
What we've basically got at the moment is the PU is the game it's being built on, and Squadron 42 is our module.
Yeah, the offline version.
It's the offline single player module. It's not in a sense they're not different games. They're the same game. It's just different modules.
Let's delve a little bit.
I'm using semantics at that point just to be.
Let's delve a little bit into. Cause we talked about the Idris, and I'd like to talk about some of the things we saw. I was really impressed with the debris field from a technological standpoint.
Yeah, they would have been a certain level of assets and then randomly procedurally generated the entire field.
I did see certain objects repeated, but as debris fields go, it was quietly high detailed. I want to know the story that goes with that. What was
like
that?
A huge space station that must have been
that must have been like a planet-sized space station. It was huge.
No, it was something debris. I reckon it was something like a. Could have been
had parts of
one
space
of those.
Stations in it, though. There were like what we've seen with Olisar. There were the rings, and then the cylinder containers for fuel.
Yeah, and then they were burning through the atmosphere, and there were parts of it
bits of falling down.
Like, and when I
reckon it could have even been what is it? The terraforming unit.
Yeah, when I started adding it all together, it was a very large station.
It was a huge, terraforming station.
It's gigantic. It's all around the planet. It's substantial.
And then you've got previously, a little bit before that, you had the coil, or near the coil, where you went in between these two rocks. I found that really interesting.
I was not ask myself, does lightning arc in space like that? You know.
I'm not sure it was supposedly lightning arcing in space. I think it was kind of the energy interaction between these two asteroids. So seeing how unstable that area was.
I understand that, but I mean, like, when in a vacuum, does electricity spark the same way it does when we have an atmosphere?
Same with fire in Star Wars, man. It's there for effect. You've got to look at
it. It looks good.
For fun. It looks good.
Sometimes
the lightning was probably not enough randomness in some of the lightning, if I had to look at it. But what I mean about that coil, or whatever they want to call it with it, I didn't expect to have a cave-like environment.
It felt like a cave. It felt like something out of a cave and walk along and
in fact, the space station Debris was cave-like at times as well. They really like it.
The ruins of the space station.
Cave-like station.
I was just kind of surprised by it was not an environment I expected to see. So what I am trying to imply is I hope we see more environments we don't expect to see, because, quite frankly, when you think of a space game, you think of a lot of space, and it seems to have done a lot of
Nebula,
brainstorming.
I honestly expect them to use every trick in the book to give a lot of variation between each go to a different environment. It's going to be completely different from the last, and you'll remember that. Oh, I've been here before, because there's nowhere else like it. You know, because each new location, new planet, new moon, or asteroid field, or nebula is going to be different.
And it's one of the things they've said they want to work on. And you know, unlike No Man's Sky, and which was just total unordered procedurally generation.
Like it's like, you know,
this is okay. Yeah,
moon. It's all.
Yeah, it was. Oh, it's the same planet. Oh, I've seen that animal before. I've called it something different. But you know, Star Citizen have said no. Yeah, we're going to use procedural stuff, but we're going to. They're always going to be artists. Are going to be touching it up and dealing with it and making it different, and that's what makes Star Citizen and what we're doing so much different from anything else that uses procedural. The procedural tech and stuff. So
it's not true procedural tech. It's artist created, procedural driven.
Yeah, it's procedural tech for the tool, as a tool for the artist.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, you know, it's a procedural paintbrush, but it's driven by the artist doing the painting. Yeah.
One of the things I'm hoping to see, and I've said this to Haze previously, is there's that scene in the latest Star Trek where the ship kind of comes in through the atmosphere, and it's being chased by all those other ships, and they're burning up, and there's all this debris, and everyone's shooting out in the escape pods and all that type of stuff. I want to see that in game. So I want to see like a space station that comes into low orbit and it collapses and everyone's got to get out of it. And can you imagine the cinematic feel of that as you're rushing, trying to get out of a space station?
I could see that happening in an Idris or a Javelin.
And then the view of it like crashing into the planet and landing, and then you've maybe even a mission to go back in and recover the black box to find out what the hell happened, or which is kind of similar to what happens in Star Trek. But it's finally really cool to be able to say there's a game that can do that.
Well, it's a matter of time that we'll eventually get working ejection pods and probably working parachutes. Presumably, you do both in combination. You could do that in a single player now, right? In a game now, they'll do it single player. But this will be the first time you'll ever be able to do something like that in multiplayer.
Yeah. Okay, question for you: would you watch the movie?
I'll play the movie.
I'll play the movie while you watch it. Jeez. Streaming.
Like, I'm just thinking, you know, the other great movie franchise that released something not too long ago, and what I saw, while at times was a bit long, it was in some of their scenes. I was more interested in what was going on there than at times than I was in that recent franchise release made by Disney.
Yeah, but I wasn't a fan. But anyway, each to their own. They're trying to make it for a new generation.
Right. Yeah, a new generation of merchandise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you got any questions from chat? Because I think that's pretty much wrapping it up at this point. What time is it? We've been here for almost an hour and a half.
I would say, going back to our talk on the Avenger, if by chance you have one of the old Avenger game packs.
Yeah, I got one.
I reckon melt it and buy one of the new starter packs.
You
lose unless you've upgraded the ship. In which case, then it's no longer a base.
I upgraded from the AMD one to that, so it only cost me $5.
I did say if you've got one of the Avenger starter packs, not one you've upgraded, one of the original starter packs. You know, the ones that are selling in the shop now. You know, with the game pack. The only difference is you lose the digital soundtrack, whoopie-doo. Mm-hmm. You lose the digital star map, whoopie-doo. You've got the digital star map on the website already. Mm-hmm. And you lose 2,000 UEC starting money. And you get it for $10, $11 cheaper.
Unless you've got LTI.
Oh, and no, you don't have. Yeah, unless you got LTI. But if you had one of the ones that are currently on sale with 5 months insurance or 6 months insurance, you buy this starter pack with 60 months insurance, and you lose those few things. If you've got one of those packs with 5 months insurance, ditch it. Buy this one. Have a few extra dollars.
Algared, I'm going to interrupt you. This is the type of stuff you need to talk about in the next show.
Oh Yeah, and that reminds me.
Because it's to January 14th, by the way.
Brings us to the end of the show, the Inforunners.
Yeah.
But make sure to tune in next week when we're going to be talking about starter packages.
Yeah. Do we have any? I just want to ask: have you got any questions from chat before we leave?
We don't.
Have you got any questions about sale? No one's answered anything.
No.
Cool. All right. Well,
That was Execute.
Yeah, that was me. Execute.
And this is Haze, and down in Algared. If you're not already aware, we now have a Discord. Excellent place to ask more detailed questions, or if you just want to leave something for us to talk about for one of our ideas for a future show. Perfect place to meet us. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and like us. And
Because we like being liked.
yeah, it's popular. It's great. But no, really, if once we're getting close to the 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, it's that'll be a big milestone for us. I'm not sure we'll make it by the end of the year, though. We will see.
Happy holidays, everyone, and have a good
Hanukkah.
time with your family.
And
Adios.
may you eat many turkeys. I've got one in the oven now because I have to eat it before I'm working Christmas, so I have to have Christmas dinner before then.
Faster, little slaves!
And yeah, thank you for watching.
All right, take care.
Everyone. Ho, 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 ho.
You're a turkey.
You should have done that, Algared. You're the Santa.
I'm not fat enough.
You're old enough. Sorry.
I'm Colton.
Ouch.
I'm Colton.